All right, guys, I got something for you today. It's going to be a little bit confusing for those who haven't seen the Crystal Garden series of videos I made in Horus and iPad Go 2, but I'm just going to try to stick with the main points regarding this wheel of time or this sort of basic blueprint of Earth that is timeless, that is endless, that is without beginning or end in terms of, you know, endlessly looping in this never-ending cycle. It is a basic blueprint, right? A basic outline of potentialities, and there's sets of souls that incarnate into the basic blueprint. And from there on, from that moment, there is basically endless branches and probabilities that could stem outward from within the oculus or within the eye of the beings or the observer. And it doesn't have to just be a human or specifically, it could be a mouse, anything living, really, even inanimate objects. Conduct change and are responsible for this branching out of quote unquote timelines and probabilities. So you have a basic blueprint, right? Which is what I saw in my near death experience, which is this endless fear. Uh, no matter how deep you go into the sphere, no matter how many versions of an avatar that you observe, there is going to be an infinite number of observers behind that one, uh, making every conceivable possible move imaginable, every conceivable possible choice imaginable contained within that sphere. But there is a basic blueprint, right? There's a basic story, right? They call it the book of life, right? There's literally, I absolutely do believe, even though I haven't seen it in any out of body experience or NDE, they talk about this cosmic library. I can't remember the name of it, where there's literally books of people's lives, and you have essentially um, basically sets of souls, right? You have sets of souls that incarnate into the blueprint over a specific cosmic cycle, and there is a cosmic time contained within the blueprint. There's a specific amount of time that this oversoul or this group of souls um, allows itself to give before the collective awakens to true self-realization and to realize what it really is, and that basic realization is that we are all one and we come from the same source. Okay. So what I mean by that is that there are a series of souls that are part of what you would describe as a reincarnation cycle, even though reincarnation does not work the way you think it does. Um, it's over souls, it's group souls, it's really dynamic and a lot more complex than the simplified version that you think that it is. And there's a goal, right? So there's a sort of cosmic clock at play. Um, that a collective of souls that are part of a cycle, they have a goal of reaching a certain point of self-awareness. And if they don't reach that goal, all the wave functions begin to collapse. Okay. And time begins to speed up. And when I mean by time, I mean the spiral of time. The spiral begins to spin faster and faster, and it becomes anthropomorphized, and it collectivizes all of our collective consciousness, collectivizes into a deity, into a being, a specific anthropomorphic being, as bizarre as that sounds. But that's kind of how this was all set up. Okay. And in our case, it's ancient Egyptian deities that are sort of feeding off of our experiences. They're in a state of suspended animation. And again, this has to do with the fall of the Crystal Garden and the black hole that was created as a result. I'm not going to go over all that stuff. My longtime listeners know what I'm talking about. If you want to know more about that, ask me in the comments. Um, but basically, there are these quote unquote gods, right? That are literally dreaming our collective existence and internalizing, like in a lucid dream, our experiences as their own experiences. And they are in a sort of competition with one another, as bizarre as that sounds, as to which of these deities is going to be the representation of that collective when all the timelines collapse and he comes through the portal, which in our case is the sun. And in our case, it's most likely going to be Horus, which is more of which is a representation of the collective that gravitates more towards the negative polarity of things instead of the positive. That's why it's called the Antichrist, right? And he's going to birth, right? iPad Go 2, in iPad Go 2, if you go to the Heliofont website, at the website itself, the red-headed Jesus, Horus, Hylaris, it says in the description that that is you. That is you. Awakening. Awakening. That's correct to a certain degree. It is you. It is the manifestation of all the souls over a cycle of time that have attempted to, in a specific time frame, to awaken itself, to awaken the collective. And once that time is up, it wakes up, and all of our collective experiences are internalized in that deity, Horus in this case. And that's how he is a god. So, in a sense, you can say he is hijacking or parasitically um, feeding off of our experiences. But before you become all negative and dark and twisted about things, that's not necessarily the case, because for that deity and for those beings that are part of that project, they have their own project going on. They have their own spiritual evolution. They are several tiers above our level of consciousness, several Mandelbrot sets above, so to speak, even though it's a stupid analogy. And even though it may seem dark, negative to us, um, they are evolving in their own way for their own specific purpose as well. But I hope I'm kind of making sense here. I know this is ridiculously confusing what I'm trying to say, but there is sets of souls. Just to go over a brief overview, there is this infinite earth that existed forever, and infinite other realities that existed forever, and infinite other realities that are always being created endlessly, nonstop. There's groups of souls that spin out from the source. They see a reality. They see Earth, for example, and they see the basic blueprint. They see a timeline, an astrological timeline. I don't. Who cares how many years you want to put it at? 26,000, 850,000 years. That crap doesn't matter at all. What matters is that let's be part of a cycle together. See how long it takes us over time to, become self-aware collectively. How much of the collective can we make self-aware by a specific time? Of course, there's adversaries at play. In every story, there has to be a tyrant. There has to be an adversary. And the Mandela effect, even though I believe, Bond number one, Mandela, the video from CERN, that gives it away that CERN has responsibility, some responsibility for what's going on. Bond number one is his name was Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela, in my opinion, by the way, he is a sort of a very important character that represents a big branch in the Oculus, meaning that from his eye, from his perspective, can deviate countless more parallel deviations than as opposed to other souls. He's his own butterfly effect, basically. If Nelson Mandela alone was changed, then everything changed because that's how important this soul was. That's how important this character was. And I said I was going to talk about Boney M. I'm getting off on a tangent here. It's interesting that Boney M, or at least one of the singers from the band, wrote a song about Nelson Mandela in 1993, which is the same year everyone remembered him dying in prison, including me, who wrote a really long essay and had to do a big speech about Nelson Mandela in high school, remembering clearly he dying in prison in 1993, and they wrote a song about Mandela in 1993, and that's not the first bizarreness with Mandela and a reference to him in other strange situations, by the way. But so um, there's a portal in the sun that's helping to quote unquote birth this anthropomorphic version of our collective, which is aligning, it's gravitating towards this manifestation of consciousness called Horus. Okay, so it's a collective. It's a thought pattern. It's a thought process. Okay, there's other deities, right? There's Anubis. There are many others. Um, there is Lilith, right? We talked about Lilith before. There's many others. There's Anunnaki that are at play here. There's many of these beings that are in suspended animation whose collective dream is kind of being hijacked by all of them to a degree, but some are playing games and more powerful than the other beings. And this is all being done in the dream and astral states, okay? So this is manifesting physically in our world as well through what we call the Mandela effect, in conjunction with CERN, in conjunction with the solar portal opening, right? The birth canal of the sun opening so that he can come through. And on top of that, individually too. So we as individuals are also responsible for the Mandela effect because we are synchronizing with everything taking place in our minds, are manifesting very powerful things and increasingly more powerful things as the wave functions and the timelines collapse one after another until that spinning time finally reaches a singularity and Horus births out of the pyramid, the all-seeing eye. I'm gonna call it a Poly Oculus. It's a Poly Oculus. It's not an all-seeing eye. It's many eyes collected into one eye, is what I believe. It's many eyes like a fly. So, like the representation of honey. It's honey. Honey is our thoughts, our dreams. Honey is the collective of our patterns of behavior being sort of sucked in to the dream state of these deities who will internalize them, awaken, and as they awaken, if time's up, then we failed as a collective to realize ourselves in a specific amount of time that we wanted, is essentially what it means. And that gives free reign for deities such as Horus to start the cycle again. Okay? And that doesn't mean individual souls are trapped anywhere, not by any means. That just means the blueprint is reset, a new collective of souls tries again to see if they can outwit the gods who are playing with each other in the astral and dream states. See if they can outsmart them. If we as a collective can outsmart them and rise above them and come to that point of self realization. Of course, throughout the eons, we've had people like Jesus come to try to help us, right? Which he is above all of them and not really associated. Well, he's associated with these deities, but not in the way that you might think. I'm not going to get into that right now. But that's my conclusion to this video. Whatever you think is fine. I'm not proclaiming it as absolute truth. I just think that our thoughts are part of someone else's dream, a higher deity's dreams, or higher deities, their dreams.